Hello, everybody. This is Fandomversity, Talk Nerdy to Me, and I'm Michael.
I'm Connor.
And today we're going to talk to you about one of our favorite games, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. So, 3D, yeah, it was re-released. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But a little backstory first for the game. It was originally made in 1998 for the Nintendo 64.
And that's not the 3D version.
That is correct. That was a 64-bit version. That's what I played as a kid, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite games.
Lucky.
It was one of the first Zelda games to have the Z targeting or the lock-on system, which became more popular with subsequent games. More than 820,000 copies were sold in 1998. Now, that might not seem impressive in today's numbers, but in 1998, it was huge. Nice. It made it the year's 10th best-selling game. But it would go on to be one of the top-selling games in its lifetime. Over 1 million copies were sold, just in Japan alone. It was a good and amazing game. The game won numerous awards and accolades and is considered by many to be one of the greatest video games ever made. I think it's still the best Zelda game ever made. Numerous publications have ranked it the best video game of all time. It's also the highest-rated game on review aggregator site, and it was re-released for the Nintendo 3DS on June 16th, 2011.
This is the XL.
This is 3DS XL. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, which has just been phased out for the Nintendo Switch Lite. So, Connor.
I call it lit.
Tell me a little bit about how the game starts.
Well, first you hear the Deku Tree talking about Link's small bit backstory. Well, later in the game you can learn more, but he talks to Navi, then it cuts to Navi flying around, talking to other fairies like, hey! And trying to get through fences. First, she just knocks herself, then she goes through.
What's a Navi?
Navi is a fairy.
A fairy? So like the Great Fairy?
No, Great Fairies are more like people that heal you and sometimes make your magic meter go up.
So what's Navi's purpose? There was no Navi in the previous games.
Well, she is to guide you. Some say she's annoying, but I like her. And she is one that helps you Z target. It even says when you learn how to Z target.
Okay. And so I hear you start off as a child in this game.
Yes.
Or no, here, I know, because I played as a kid. Tell me a little bit about how you age in the game.
To age, you have to pull out the Master Sword, which is his favorite part.
Yes. Very cinematic.
And you go to the sacred temple. The sacred realm, where Ganondorf steals the Triforce of Power. Then, I forgot his name. No, it's not Jumani. That's the Goron guy. He tells you about how you need to stop Ganon and stuff.
What's your least favorite part of the game?
Fighting dead hands and inside Zabu's belly.
That was my least favorite temple. I remember as a kid it took me forever, and it wasn't so easy just to Google a tutorial as it is nowadays. We had to figure it out the hard way.
Or you could just go through the small magazine that's translated in Japanese.
Oh, well, they had game guides, but I wasn't a cheater. Well, my parents wouldn't let me. I didn't even have a Nintendo 64. I had to play it at my friend's house.
That's sad.
Yeah, well,
I played on this baby.
Well, you're a lucky child. My least favorite part of the whole game is the fact that everyone's mind kind of forgets what happened, and no one even recognizes you as a hero, and Zelda doesn't even remember you.
Though in the adult timeline after it, the Wind Waker, which takes place right after, they remember you.
That's weird.
Because it takes place in that universe where you're still the hero, and they say that you just magically disappeared.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
In the child timeline, it skips to Majora's Mask. You look for Navi, because at the end of the game, Ocarina of Time, Navi just flies away randomly without saying a word.
Oh, interesting.
I theorize because when a fairy's purpose is fulfilled, they just poof, they're gone.
That's an interesting theory. What kind of other characters are in the game?
Guru, the windmill keeper, Impa.
What's Impa?
She is the person that guides Zelda, and she's also a sage, one of the 7 sages.
Okay.
Rudu, that's the one you marry in the game for some reason, even though she's a fish. Germani, who has a son that names him after your character, and he's also a sage. Can't really remember much others.
Speaking of naming your character, isn't there a little Easter egg if you name yourself Zelda?
Yes, if you talk when you first meet Zelda and your name is Zelda, she says something funny. What's your name? Zelda? I feel like I've heard that somewhere. Then she thinks it's a dream.
That's funny. So what kind of transportation is utilized in the game?
Epona, she's a horse, and to get her, you have to get to be an adult by pulling out the master, like we said before. You have to go to Romani's ranch, which is now held by Indigo, I think his name is. And you have to get the horse, race him 3 times, I think. Then he'll trap you and say something like, you can't, if you want to keep the horse, you're going to have to stay in here. Even if you don't want Epona, he still keeps you in there, which you can't choose. No. Then if you go to your left, like when you're in the small circle, you just hop out.
Oh,
you have to do timing.
You escape the ranch?
Yes. Then if you come back, he's like, what the heck has happened? Who are you? How'd you get back?
So what kind of temples are there besides the Jabba's belly we mentioned we don't like so much?
Yes, and lots of Zelda games. And, well, first temple is the Great Deku Tree, which I like calling it the Great Deku Tree's belly.
Which is an easy one. More of a tutorial temple.
Yeah. The next temple would be Jabu's belly, which I've already mentioned, which is too much jellyfish.
Yeah, they shock you.
I got stuck, especially going through the portals and aiming with my boomerang.
And having to carry the little princess all over the place.
Yeah, because if you leave her, she goes all the way back to a random spot. To one of the portals or down. The next temple would be the fire temple. Well, not the fire temple because that's a bit later in the game. Would be the Goron place. I forgot what that.
I guess it's like a rock, maybe.
Inside a giant rock. To get to the boss, it's a bunch of stuff bombing your way. The boss, I thought, was one of the hardest.
Oh yeah.
You have to, because I couldn't aim with my bombs.
Oh, that can be. Isn't that the one where you run in a circle?
Yes.
And then you gotta throw it in his mouth.
What?
And then, yeah, I remember that from the 90s.
So annoying. Especially because it usually just goes right next to him and he doesn't.
So there's a run of temples as a kid. You become an adult, and then there's another run
7.
of temples as an adult. How many temples as a kid and how many temples as an adult?
3 temples as a kid, and 9 temples if you count Romani's ranch, which is basically a temple, and Ganondorf's castle, which I thought was pretty easy.
Yeah, he was a little underwhelming for the big bad of the series, of the game.
Though it was hard to get to his tail since he kept on swinging it.
Yeah. So, what do you rate the game out of 5?
4.5.
4.5 out of 5 stars?
Yes.
And why not 5?
Because, I feel like there's a bit too much creepy stuff, and a little kid, there's a theory that he turns into the Poe collector, and he says something that is like, if I looked as handsome as you, I'd run a different kind of business. That's what he says. Which is weird.
So you loses half of a star for too much creepiness for a family-friendly game?
Yes, it's not and plus there's blood on dead hands.
Okay. I give it 5 out of 5 stars because I like creepy.
I wish I had to try for some courage.
Well, that's our quick and short review of Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Both.
3D or
3D or normal.
Morally normal because
it's pretty much the same game.
But the release dates are different.
Yeah.
And you can turn on 3D. That's about it.
And the graphics are way better in the 3D. I tell you what.
Especially when pulling out the Master Sword.
Feel free to join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/fandomversity tntm.
If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe and like.
Exactly. And hit that bell icon to be notified for future videos.
Adios.
Later.